For Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the Charkha was a symbol he used with lethal effect, a weapon in his political armory. As early as 1920, when he gave a call to boycott foreign goods and clothes, he urged Indians to use the Charkha to replace the textile machinery, to weave their own yarn, and inevitably, khadi became the dress code of the freedom fighters. But in spite of his aversion to rampant industrialization, it is possible to treat Gandhi's socialist controversy over the place of machinery in Indian society as a matter of emphasis, and to interpret Gandhi's philosophy in terms of decentralization.
If decentralized modes of energy become available, if flexible manufacturing techniques, if just-in-time methods of inventory control, I think, are widely adopted, small industries will become much more viable. And then I do believe that the Gandhian dream of a decentralized pattern of industry may be not only I think it has ethical, superiority, but it may also become economically a preferable mode of operating a modern economy as well.
In the village of Anand in Gujarat was born one such Gandhian dream. It began as a modest milk producers cooperative collecting about 200 litres of milk a day. An indigenous response challenging the might of the international giant Paulson Limited. During the last 50 years, it has transformed into a corporate success story, collecting over 1 million litres of milk every day and producing butter and related products under the brand name of Amul. The story of Amul has been replicated in many other parts of the country, offering a model which truly synthesizes the Gandhian approach to economy.
What we are talking about is seeking the larger dimensions of development, which is development of man. Development of milk, development of cows is not so important as development of man. And to develop man, you have to involve him in the processes of development. You have to create structures he commands. You have to give him the responsibility so that he becomes responsible. That is what Anand is, that is what Amul is, that is what Operation Flood is.
But the recent trends of liberalization and the coming of the multinationals has alarmed the supporters of this kind of cooperative ventures.
If liberalization means that a multinational can come and set up a dairy in Anand and harvest the crop we have sown and we have nurtured for 40 years, then I have violent and serious objection to such liberalization. He cannot come and harvest my crop. Now if he goes to some other district and starts with his 200 litres a day, as even as we did, and builds it up to 1 million litres, nobody has objection. I have the least objection to it. But all of them want to come where the cooperatives have developed the market. They only want to reap the crop. They don't want to sow. They don't want to nurture. They don't want to fertilize. They don't want to labor over it. They want quick money.
Yet, even in the early years of the 20th century India were stories of individual visionaries. One such was a Parsi man, whose forefathers had landed in the coast of Gujarat, escaping religious prosecution. The genius of Jamshedji is that he alone in his time understood the full significance of the Industrial Revolution in the West and of its potentialities for his own country. Where others saw India's freedom primarily or exclusively in terms of political action, he saw clearly that India's freedom could not be achieved or sustained by political means alone. That freedom could itself only come from widespread industrialization and the infusion of modern science and technology into the country's economic life. The three basic ingredients of economic progress as he saw them were steel, electrical power and technical education combined with research. Jamshedji's dreams were fulfilled only years after his death. The township in Bihar which bears his name is testament to the foresight of this entrepreneur. Successive generations of this family bearing the name of Tata have become synonymous with industrial progress in the country.
Is that the enormous amount of detailed controls that developed because of our wonderful bureaucracy, which is very intelligent in developing, adding to one control and making it much more complex. I think that certainly led to a depression, inability of entrepreneurship to thrive.
By 1961, an official study showed that 1.6% of the country's companies owned 53% of the total private capital, whereas 86% of the others owned 14.6% of the capital. And by the mid-70s and late 80s, the license quota Raj, as this era was dubbed, had contributed to distortions in the system.
Indian trade and business is like water. Water always finds its way around barriers. And if it cannot find its way around a barrier, it goes underground. So that's what happened in India. When we found controls to be terribly excessive, Indian industry and trade began to go underground. We developed a large black economy. We began to develop a huge overseas economy, which nobody knows about. The IMF has estimated that over $100 billion of Indian money is lying outside.
Combined with a huge population that had already multiplied threefold since independence, the economy needed to be given a shock therapy if it was to respond to the challenges. There were already arguments that Indian economy must shed its shackles, that it should dovetail itself to the global system. We began this episode witnessing a surcharged political atmosphere in 1969. We end this with another political drama. In November 1989, Rajiv Gandhi had lost the elections. The Congress party was now in the opposition. Rajiv Gandhi's former finance minister VP Singh was heading a coalition cobbled together by parties holding disparate philosophies. By the end of 1990, the BJP, an electoral ally of VP Singh, decided to launch a nationwide Rath Yatra in support of building a temple in the disputed Babri Masjid site at Ayodhya. The BJP withdrew its support of the VP Singh government when L.K. Advani was arrested and the Rath Yatra halted. The political uncertainty that followed camouflaged a grim reality that over the past 40 years, a series of debatable economic decisions had led the country to the brink of economic collapse. Chandrasekhar, the young Turk, who had stood with Mrs. Gandhi during a fight against the old guards in 1969, had by now replaced VP Singh as Prime Minister. But his government too did not last long. By May 1991, the country was in the throes of yet another election. And during this campaign, Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated by a human bomb at Sri Perambaddur near Madras. By June 1991, the Congress party, however, came back to power once again. But economic realities were such that the government headed by Narasimha Rao and his finance minister Dr. Manmohan Singh decided to take one of the most radical breaks from the past.
The purpose of the economic reform of 91 was to bring out this tremendous spirit of adventure and enterprise which exists in our country, to bring it into the open and to use it to build one of the most dynamic, competitive economies of the world, and simultaneously a compassionate society.
Ironically, the same Congress which had for the last 50 years sworn by socialism and supported a command economy was rewriting a new economic agenda. Almost every one of the shackles which curbed private enterprise was now being withdrawn. Suddenly, for the world at large, India was viewed as an emerging giant, with the potential of being at par with the economies of the Pacific Rim nations. By 1995, these cars rolling out of a state-of-the-art factory near Noida in Uttar Pradesh symbolized one other facet of India's economic profile. Along with a host of other competitors, Daewoo was wooing the burgeoning Indian middle class. Contrast this with these advertisements appearing in Indian newspapers in 1947 for bicycles, most of which were cobbled together from imported elements. 50 years later, in 1997, in these modern factories, cycles are manufactured by the thousands to be exported all over the world. A village near Hyderabad, Pochampalli, is today world famous for the weaves which go to make saris that carry the unique label of its geography. And these modern textile mills in Ahmedabad produce denim material which makes Arvind Mills the second largest producer of denim cloth in the entire world.